Hello and welcome to our Royal Ascot preview as brought to you by Paddy Power and our very good friends at Sporting Life. My name is Patrick Kennelly, thanks a million for joining us, and I've got an esteemed panel to join us to go through as many Royal Ascot races as we're allowed. Firstly, to my left, it says here on my notes, Timeform Shruti Billy Nash.
I wrote that for you there, Patrick.
Good man, fair play, and I've read it out as well, which is the main thing. We also have Paddy Power Racing trader Frank Hickey, also, again on the notes, Shruti. No? A couple of winners the weekend on the From the Horse's Mouth podcast, Frank. Did well.
Yeah, the Ruby showed me up big
As
time.
per usual.
Didn't he?
How many tips did you do? 20?
Who knows, actually. We only did about 7 or 8. And butting in as ever is all-round nice guy, former jockey, and now top pundit, Fran Berry. Fran, how are you?
All good, PK.
Very good. Top pundit or former jockey, which do you prefer now at this stage?
The former jockey end of it's gone, I think. Yeah, so.
It actually says all-round lovely fella. Again, I'm referring to these notes. All-round lovely fella, which is only added for you.
Yeah, I'd agree with that totally. Yeah.
You would agree with that one?
Yeah,
that
yeah,
one, fair
yeah,
play,
definitely.
fair play. We are here to give you an anti-post preview to Royal Ascot. We're going to look at the major races, the Group 1s. We'll dabble a little bit into the Group 2s and maybe even get a couple for the handicaps as well. Now, I've got a lot of housekeeping, so I'm going to refer to the notes before we kick off. If you are watching this on YouTube, please do hit the subscribe button. We've got loads of brilliant content on the Paddy Power Racing YouTube channel and the Sporting Life YouTube channel as well, including the likes of Ruby Walsh going down to various yards, Irish yards with horses heading to Royal Ascot. Watch out for that. We're also going to have a punters panel show. Johnny Deneen is going to be in. We've got a couple of Cork lads in today. Johnny Deneen, he's not Cork as well, is he? Here, lads. The Rebels are taking over. Watch out for that punters panel. You're going to be on that as well, I believe, Frank?
I am, yeah.
And Fran?
Yes, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, that should be coming down the line on the Paddy Power Racing YouTube channel. Sporting Life sends you around the gaffs as well, Fran. Are you doing it for Sporting Life?
Yeah, I do a little bit through the winter months, obviously, with Willie Mullins, but we'll send Ruby off. I'm sure he's going to change the routines of a lot of his trainers pre-ride Ascot and tell him how it's done, so we'll let Ruby at it.
Excellent stuff. So watch out for the Sporting Life and Paddy Power Racing YouTube channels. Also, we've got you covered for Royal Ascot next week. We're going to have daily From the Horse's Mouth tipping podcasts with Ruby Walsh, as mentioned, and also Rory Delargy, so watch out for those. Watch out also on the Sporting Life app. There's going to be plenty fast results, analysis, opinion pieces, and for those who are Paddy Power customers, there may even be a free bet for you on day one. So watch out for that as well. And finally, a lot of notes here. Thanks very much, Producer Mark. A lot of notes. Finders keepers. For those of you who don't know what that is, basically it's really simple. If you have a Paddy Power account, watch the Paddy Power I should say, this is live, Royal Ascot morning show every morning on the social channels. What we do is we essentially just drop money into a Paddy Power account. We're going to be dropping 500 grand, £500,000 into various accounts right throughout the week. All you got to do is make sure you're watching that show and take the money out. It's as simple as that. So finders keepers all during Royal Ascot. I think that's enough. We get into Royal Ascot now at this stage?
I think so.
Thanks very much, Producer Mark. That was really, really nice to do all that. The Queen Anne will kick off Royal Ascot as it traditionally does. It is the mile for older horses. I'm going to go straight to you, Billy. Shruti, Timeform Shruti, Billy Nash. Modern Games, Inspiral, Erevan, they're the top 3 in the market. Probably not a vintage renewal.
Possibly not, no, but I think Modern Games deserves to be favourite. He's a Group 1 winner in 4 countries. He won the Lockingey course last time out. And on that performance, look, he doesn't set an unsurmountable standard. So because of the fillies allowance that she'll get, Inspiral is going to come out top on Timeform ratings. And if she's back to her best, I think she's the one to beat. She won the Coronation last year, first run of the season. She missed the Guineas. This is going to be her first run of this year, but the vibes are very positive from John Goslin's, and I think with the fillies allowance, she's going to take all the beating.
Interesting. Okay. Is there concern, Fran, about Charlie Appleby? I know he had a few runners last weekend in America that ran okay, or is the concern still there about the yard?
Yeah, and I was in Epsom, and a lot of his horses actually looked off colour in their coats, and obviously didn't run up to form, bombed down the Derby, and a number of horses run poorly. But Modern Games, he's a battle-hardened horse, been around the world, as Billy said. Good win to Lockingey, and he sets a good standard. But I would like Billy and Spiral off the back for breaks, similar trend to last year. She sets a very good standard, getting that sex allowance. Erevan, though, for me, is really interesting. I think he's a horse that's just begin to come to the boil. Very good winner, the pre-Daniel Wildenstein last October on Arc weekend. Picked up really well down the far side of the track to win on that occasion. I thought his comeback run was typical of Jean-Claude Rouget in that it was just a case of get him out, get him started, and I'd say this has been his target for a while. He's the one that I think is the unknown quantity. He's currently 92 with Paddy Power. For me, he's the value. I would give a mention to Lucille at a bigger price as well, good record in Ascot. Didn't run as well as he can do perhaps in Lockinge, but 33-1 extra place probably be available on the day.
Come on, Fran, an extra
Frank.
place, will there, Frank? Will there be an extra place?
Sure, I'll just go there and leave
I mean,
Fran 2 on the train.
It'll be a 6-runner Queen Anne, and he's looking for 4 places. Okay, so Lusail, your each-way pick if there's an extra place, but even if there isn't,
Irvan is definitely
Erevan is the selection, and Inspiral for Billy. Frank?
Yeah, look, I'd agree with what Billy said about Modern Games deserves to be favoured, but I think if Inspiral's, kind of even runs the level of Coronation last year, she'd be very tough to beat. Like, it was her first start last year, she was wildly impressive. Look, she was disappointed when turnover by Prosperous Voyage at Newmarket, but she did win the Jacques Le Marois. Interesting enough, she's only half a length ahead of Erevan, so I would agree with Fran in that he's a bit of a danger. At the bigger price ones, Triple Time is one to keep an eye on. I think he's a horse that's capable of making his mark in Group 1s this year. The problem is he only had 2 runs at the tail end of last year, and he'll be coming in here first start of the season. But for me, I think Inspiral's the one to beat if she's anywhere near her best.
All right, 2 votes for Inspiral. Frank and Billy agree, and Erevan one to watch out for Fran. Couple of big prices if you like to go to big price, Lusail and Triple Time from both Fran and Frank. So those are the selections for the Queen Anne. You've got a couple of votes for Inspiral and 1 for Erevan, a couple of bigger prices as well. Watch out for Triple Time and Lusail. Right, we're going to move on to the first of the 2-year races, the Coventry Stakes. Now, obviously, we have prices for the Coventry as we are live now on Monday night, but there will be loads of other races where we could get runners like the Norfolk, the Windsor Castle, and that sort of thing. However, let's chat about the Coventry. And I'm going to go straight to you, Frank. River Tiber and Asadna take up, 90% of the market here? They look 2 rattlingly good 2-year-olds, and the winner probably comes from one of these 2?
Probably. I'd be very much in the Asadna camp over River Tiber. Run to a huge Timeform figure on debut. And yeah, if he builds on that, it'd be almost impossible to beat. I'd much prefer him over River Tiber. I wonder if River Tiber will want a bit more ease in the ground that he's likely to get on Tuesday if it's on the fast side. At bigger prices, I'd be very interested if Barnwell Boy ended up coming here rather than the Windsor Castle. I know when he won at Goodwood over 6 on debut, he was very impressive and won by 4.5 lengths despite lugging left and kind of being green. Again, he ran to a very big time figure on Timeform ratings, and he's overpriced. If you do kind of get a word that he's going to switch to Coventry, he'd be one to be back in each way, maybe against the favourite. But he's one to definitely keep an eye on if he ends up in the Windsor Castle or Norfolk. He's very interesting, but for me, Asadna has run to a huge. The only concern with Asadna is it was like the Dams had is it 3 or 4 other prodigy, and they're all fairly average. But he was very impressive at Ripon, and yeah, if he builds on that, he'd be very hard to beat.
Cork Mafia here, you're mentioning Timeform more than I've ever noticed you, and you've got your county mate Billy here from Timeform. Yeah, I can't remember you mentioning Timeform as many times as you just did.
Because I was saying jumps, you maybe wouldn't use it enough, but with 2-year-old, I find their ratings excellent for 2-year-olds, and it's like you've so little information to go on. You're basically working off breeding, purchase price, and none of the form kind of correlates, so you're trying to figure out and put a pecking order on. The Timeform ratings will give you a good indication of what what they've run to, and you rarely go wrong if you're following them with 2-year-olds. So he's run a huge Timeform figure.
Well, let's talk to Billy about that Timeform figure. Put it into context. This is Asadna, by the way. How impressive was it? Was it one of the best Timeform ever given, or what's the crack with this one?
Yeah, I concur with everything Fran
said
there, of course. Yeah. Look, our clock watchers.
He did write a report. Thanks.
Our clock watchers got very excited by Asadna. It was an ordinary race at Ripon, but he ran to a huge time figure, like Frank said, 109 first time out. Doesn't happen that often. It's the biggest time figure a 2-year-old has run to this year so far on debut. And when you look back at last year, there was, of the top 5 time figures that were recorded by 2-year-olds last year, pre-Royal Ascot, first time out, 3 of them went to Little Big Bear, dramatised, and Bradsell, and 3 of them ended up winning at Ascot last year. So this kind of thing, like I said, it doesn't happen often. It wasn't much of a race, but he looked very special doing it. If he can reproduce that sort of form, he's going to be really hard to beat. But it's going to be a big head-to-head. River Tiber is no mug. He won by 10 lengths first time out himself. As Frank said, it was on heavy ground, but he was really, the way he came up the hill at Navan was very impressive. And the drop back to 5 at Naas probably didn't suit him the last day, but again, hit the line really strong. 6 at Ascot will suit him well. He'll make Asadna go every step, I think. Okay,
but you'd be getting the P45. You didn't tip up Asadna here at this stage.
I'd like to see him again, but
yeah, okay.
Like I said, he'll be hard to beat, but he'll be up against a good one, I think.
Watching brief for you then, Billy. Fair enough. We haven't mentioned any other horses. Fran, is there a need to?
Yeah, definitely. Look, Give Me the Beat Boys, trained by Jessica Harrington. I presume he'll go there and he finds a way to win. I thought his win in the Marble Hill to Curr was very good. River Tiber, the extra furlong step back up and trip, I think will suit him very well. And you want to stick with the Irish juvenile form. I think at the current odds, Give Me the Beat Boys definitely overpriced 14 to 1. I can see him toughing out and being in the mix. River Tiber maybe has that bit of class, but Asadna, the second and fourth have been beat since. I know the clock watchers are getting excited here, but I'm happy to look elsewhere.
Okay, so of the big two, you'd be on the River Tiber side, but
Give Me the Beat Boys.
Sorry, Frank, I forgot your each way selection. Barronwood Boy, wasn't it?
Barronwood
If
Boy,
he runs
if he
here.
runs, I think straight afterwards, Mark Johnson said that they were looking at the Windsor Castle.
Okay.
Yeah, he'd be very hard to beat in that, I think, because I said Oisin Murphy even got off and said he had a lot of speed. It was the same maiden actually that Royal Scotsman won last year, and he finished third in the commentary. And I think Massar may have won it back in the day as well, so it's a decent maiden. But yeah, if he did rock up in the Coventry, he'd look a big price at the moment, but I imagine his price would contract quite a bit if they said they were going to switch to the Coventry. But he's definitely a juvenile to be keeping an eye on.
And no concern, 6 furlongs versus 5, the Windsor
won over
Castle.
6 ago,
Okay.
so they said they'd drop him back because he's very speedy. But like, yeah, I don't think the trip would be any issue. It's just he's definitely a now horse. Like, he's not very big, and he probably won't be one that'll make into top class 3-year-old. But he's good.
One to watch out for whatever race he runs, and really, that's Barronwood Boys. So that is the Coventry wrapped up. We'll move on to the next grade, Group 1 on the Tuesday. It is the King's Stand. The international horses get their chance here. It's the big sprint over 5 furlongs, the first of 2 open age sprints. Highfield Princess for the home team, obviously a wonderful year for her. Is Ascot going to suit her? Is she a bang 5 furlong York type horse? You've got the Aussies with Coolangatta, dramatised a 3-year-old, obviously taking on the elders, another Aussie in Cannonball, and then we have the American, of course, Wesley Ward will be here with a couple of really interesting runners. Fran, because you said you've been talking to someone in Australia, I'm going to start with you. Tell us about this Coolangatta.
Yeah, Coolangatta, look, it's hard to weigh up to form when you come across, but my Australian contacts say that she wouldn't be in the same league as what has performed here well here in recent years, Artorias, etc. And a stiff 5 furlongs might just find her in the last 100 metres. Could be one to travel well, look like a winner to furlong pole, and then fall out of the camera inside the final furlong. Cannonball shouldn't be good enough based on his Australian form, but they're both interesting challengers. Good to have them up here. Highland Princess, she ran a cracker. She probably, in hindsight, ran the wrong race last year, ran in the 6 furlong race. Back to right trip, 5 furlongs. I thought her comeback run at York was very good. Our Power's come out of that race and won since. She just finds a way to win. She jumps, travels, sets good standards. Interesting to see so many 3-year-olds in the betting. They don't have a good record in the last 10 years at least in this race, but for me I think Highfield Princess is definitely the one to beat. Dramatised her win to Queen Mary last year, was very good, along with the Wesley Ward train Loves Reigns, who rider looked lost in the track last year, so she may be better than that.
Will the same rider be on this year, or?
Hopefully not.
Hopefully not. All right. You mentioned loads of 3-year-olds. The Aussie 3-year-olds, though, are a little bit older, right? They're about half a year older, yeah? That's that.
Yeah,
so they're
turn 4 in August, don't they?
Exactly, yeah. So the Coolangatta and Cannonball, whilst 3-year-olds, they're kind of 3.5-year-olds. Billy, thoughts on the King's Stand?
Yeah, I'd agree with Fran about Coolangatta. She won the Lightning Stakes in Flemington last time out, and Flemington 5 furlong track, it's a bare 5 furlongs. I don't think it's actually the full 5 furlongs. And it's a really fast track, so stiff 5 at Ascot might be a different kettle of fish for her. Highfield Princess is the one to beat here, Patrick. I mean, she was the dominant force in this division last year. I don't think it's a particularly deep division, but she was the best around, and you'd have to say her reappearance effort at York would suggest that she's at least as good as ever. She's probably not going to be getting any better at the age of 6, but she's as good as ever. She won at Ascot before. People say that Ascot isn't her track. She did win a Britannia Handicap there. I know it was a different class of a race, but she can act on the course. And I think the stiff 5 will really suit her. So she's the one to beat, but it's an open enough race. There's plenty of opposition. One that I'd give a squeak at a bigger price is Roger Varian's Mitt Bahi. I thought you can probably put a line through his run of the Temple Stakes at Haydock because he was essentially drawn the wrong side of the track. Dramatised won that, but she was on the stand rail. That was the place to be on the day. Mitt Bahi did best of the horses out in the middle of the track. And he was, he had a good year last year, put a line through his run at Longchamp at the end of the year. It was on soft ground. He doesn't handle it. So fast ground at Ascot, stiff 5 will suit him. I could see him running well, but I think whatever beats Highfield Princess will win.
Okay, so Highfield Princess and the win. Mitt-Bahi maybe each way. Frank, can you confirm if we're going for the 4 places at this stage? Fran will be looking for 5 at this stage. But this race, is it this race that Munista was 4th last year, or she got for the? Yeah, so it has a habit of a horse placing at a big price. You're a great man for a big price.
Yeah. Look, I'd agree with Billy on Highfield Princess, I thought it was a very good reappearance considering she wasn't strong in the market at York either, suggesting the run was needed, so you'd expect she could improve on that run, and she was conceding a penalty, and I think that Azure Blue is a fast improving filly too, so she's definitely the one to beat at a price, like not a massive price, but Manaccan for John Ryan, good course for him, and he improved with every run last year, and I thought it was a good run in the Palace House Stakes, considering soft ground wouldn't have suited him at all. He wants faster ground. He's only 4, he's improving. Like, you can go back to his juvenile season, I think he finished 3rd or 4th in the Cornwall Stakes. But as I said, improved with every run last year, and the track suits him. If Highfield Princess at her very best, he probably won't beat her, but I could see him hitting the 3 or 4 or 5, depending.
How generous you are, and how much of an influence Fran Berry has. Right, I'll put you two down for a Highfield Princess, Fran and Billy. Obviously, Midbahi, one to watch out for.
I'd do Manaccan each way.
And Manaccan each way.
Just worth to mention, Twilight Call's second race last year is 20 to 1, and Ladies Church as well. The two of them at double figure prices are going to be.
Ladies Church definitely looks like she's improved from 3 to 4.
Yeah.
She's very good, and she wants fast ground as well.
Just doesn't back up a run sometimes, as you'd expect. That's the only
but you
negative,
could see it. Twilight Call's just, you maybe could, like, Newmarket, the ground would have been too soft, and Haylock, there was definitely a massive bias. At the time, I was thinking, Jesus, Dramatize a big player, but there was a huge bias of being on the rail that day, so you'd probably take that form with a pinch of salt. But if Twilight Calls came at his best, because I got my fingers burnt to them at Haylock, so I'm a little bit more reluctant, but he's definitely capable of playing a part if he's on a going day.
When there's 6th place in offer, I'll be back.
Six places.
It'll just be money back or loser race at this stage by the end of this preview. Okay, that's the King's Stand.
There's this extremely friendly guy in the shop looking for 6th place in the King's Stand.
All round nice guy. All round nice guy, Fran Berry. Yeah, all round.
I'll send my wife in.
All round nice guy wife.
So that is the King's Stand. No votes for the Aussies, interestingly. Yeah, they're very quickly ruled out, so it'll be the Australian forecast potentially. St James's Palace is the big Group 1 for the 3-year-old colts over the mile, and this does see a classic matchup. You've got the Newmarket Guineas winner in Chaldean, or the 2000 Guineas winner, and you've got the Irish 2000 Guineas winner in Paddington, and they dominate the market. And we've seen in the past, Fran, that particularly with John Goldson, he can win this with horses who didn't run the classics, the likes of Palace Pier and Without Parole, and nearly did it with King of Comedy as well. So while the Guineas is the obvious starting point, it can be one. You've got Cicero's Gift and Mustabshire who come from that kind of angle.
Yeah, and Cicero's Gift was awesome visually in Goodwood, and the form has got a boost since Colesay, who was 2nd or 3rd time around well in Epsom against older horse last week, and that and Mustabshire is very impressive winning at York, both unknown quantities, but they are going to have to step forward markedly to take on the 2 Guineas winners, I think. Now, tactics that round mile St James's Palace can get very messy. You can see last year was a very messy race. The Guineas winner, Caribbeus, managed to get up and win, but can often play a part there. Chaldean finds a way to win. He's very, adaptable as regards ground. He won the Acom, wasn't it, on fast ground at York last year, staying on well again. Just thought Paddington, for all that he had home team advantage in the Irish Guineas. He had a couple of stable companions playing defence for him in the race to a point. The former
Team tactics.
Team tactics,
Oh,
exactly. Yeah.
Never.
And he probably have the same in Ascot, to be fair. So I think Paddington just stepped forward markedly on better ground than he faced in the past. May well be more to come from him. The two of them are, it's going to be a cracking race with the two of them. Add in Cicero's Gift, Mustabshire, and the horse that was way just behind him, Charan of Roger Varian, 66 to 1, is not without a chance, and could see him run a good race, but as a pick, Paddington is the one I'd be with.
All right, put you down for Paddington. Billy, thoughts on St James's Palace?
Bit of a toss-up here, Patrick, to be honest. Certainly on ratings, like you said, it's a head-to-head between Chaldean, as I'm told it should be pronounced.
Look, we've said 14 different versions at this stage.
My podcast buddies tell me it's Chaldean, so I'll go with them.
Fair enough.
And Paddington, obviously, the 2 Guineas winners. Historically, you would think that the Newmarket Guineas is a slightly stronger race than the Irish one. I'm not so sure this year, and certainly on a line through the likes of High Royal and Charian and Galeron and those horses, there's very little between Chaldean and Paddington. I think Chaldean is an out-and-out miler. I think Paddington will get a 1.25 miles easily later in the year and might even improve for stepping up to 1.25 miles. So I think Ballydoyle will want to make this a real test, and if they do, then I could see Paddington come out on top, but it's going to be really close, and it should be a fascinating race, this one.
Oh, really looking forward to it. Frank, what was your take on the Newmarket versus the Irish Guineas?
I'd be with Billy again. It's just
Cork
a
Mafia
Cork thing, like,
Yeah, clearly.
Where it does look like the Irish Guineas might be slightly better than the Newmarket version. I don't know. Like, at the prices, I'd be half tempted with Isaac Shelby. Like the winner of the French Games come out and run really well in third in the French Derby, and the front two there look top class. He's obviously very impressive at Newbury in the Greenham. You put a line through the Dewhurst run because he had a setback after winning at Newmarket. He's won on fast ground at Newmarket. Like, I wouldn't have him too far behind the two there, and just at the prices each way. Like, and the fact there is, we might get into it a bit later, like there is, like on the straight course over a mile, you don't want to be prominent, but on the round course, it can be an advantage when you get a messy race, and he's likely to be in the first couple. So he might be placed, he might be positioned well if it's a bit tactical. So for him, I don't think that he's too far behind the rest, and each way I'd probably go with Isaac Shelby.
Okay, Isaac Shelby, go on.
As somebody said, he gave Chaldean 9 stone and beat him at Newbury.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
there you go.
He did. Right, Isaac Shelby for Frank. Paddington, kind of token selection for Billy, but Fran keen on Paddington. Watch out for Charon each way, or Charin each way as well for Fran. That's the Group 1s, and the main race is done on day 1. There are obviously plenty of really competitive handicaps through the week. The Ascot Stakes, the Wolferton. You've got a good record in the Ascot Stakes, Fran, as we well know. The Copper Horse handicap as well. I asked Fran before, I was like, have you had a winner at Royal Ascot? He's like, 4. Sorry. Willie Mullins obviously is a man who just dominates everything at the moment, and he reveals that possibly Vauban's going to go for the Copper Horse Stakes. Could be very interesting.
Really interesting, and maybe the start of an interesting flat campaign for that horse, the Ebor course later in the year in August, Melbourne Cups we mentioned, you know, so it's going to be involved in that. He's going to be a very warm order in Ascot. He's going to be over bet, I'd say, on the day because of that factor. He could well win.
When Ryan Moore is booked and everything else, yeah. Or Frankie.
Or Frankie,
Yeah,
it'd be one or the other, I would
yeah.
imagine. And look, fascinating to see him. The Ascot Stakes, got to give it a mention, of course. Bring on the Night was given a mention. Billy was telling me by Willie Munn's, second in the race last year to Coltrane. My mate Mozzie, he'd be interested if he pitches up there. He was quite big in the Curragh last week, and to me, he was only a readier run. If he goes to Ascot or wherever he goes next, is very interesting. And Newfoundland, trained by Joseph Bryan, is only rated 89. If he was to scrape into that or was to go for that race, he's very interesting. He was only beaten 4 lengths at the meeting last year.
Okay. Any from Billy or Frank on the handicaps, or we move on to day 2?
Yeah, I think Willie's got 2 great chances here. Bring on the Night, hasn't run since the race last year. Look, he bumped into Coltrane. He won't bump into a Coltrane this year, and I'm sure he's been kept for the race. He'll be very hard to beat. And if Vauban, we're not sure what mark he's going to get, but he's a listed winner on the flat in France before Willie got him. That was over 1.5 miles. Interestingly, I see he's in the Erdison Ledger as well. So if they think he's that quality of a horse, then he should be good enough to win a handicap. And you look, on his hurdles form alone, he's got a great chance. As the lads say, he could be a very short price, but he'll be hard to beat.
Yeah, I think producer Mark's on him for the Melbourne Cup at big prices. And did he tell anyone about that?
Oh, God.
Did he tell? I think he mentioned triple figures on Vauban on for the right. Let's get Tuesday. Less of that. Let's get Tuesday naps. Go back over your notes. Your best bet on the Tuesday, folks. I will go to Frank, whose notes, by the way, which you stayed up until 1 a.m. last night doing them.
Yeah.
And
I
forgot
thought, no, I emailed them to my personal email.
Okay.
And then when I checked on the phone, there was a problem downloading the document, and I was getting very annoyed. But
You've
luckily,
done well.
recovered
You've done well
them. No,
ad-libbing
I've
so
recovered
far.
them. I have them.
Oh,
here.
you've recovered them. Good man. Okay.
Yeah, look, to be fair, it's very small to see on my phone. I would have brought my laptop if I knew they were permitted, but
Billy's on the ball.
yeah,
Billy's on the
I'm
ball.
reduced
Go on,
to a
give us
small
your
iPhone with a crack
Your best
in it.
bet on day 1, please.
In Spiral, in
Spiral.
the Queen Anne.
Fran?
Going against Frank Irvan, I think, is really interesting. Straight track racing will suit him very well, and he's a strong finisher for me. We'll start race 1 with a winner on day 1.
Okay, well, hopefully one of you get it. Billy?
I'll go for Bring on the Night in the Ascot Stakes to go 1 better than last year.
Okay, Bring on the Night. Frank, what price are you going to open Bring on the Night in the Ascot Stakes, please?
Yeah, no entries. 5 to 4.
Come on now. He'll be bigger than that. Make sure he's each way. Right, let's move on to Wednesday, day 2.
So we'll go 7 places.
well, as well,
We'll go 4 to 1.
Best odds
That'd be
guaranteed.
ideal.
go away
That'd be
now.
ideal.
I didn't even take 7 to do that.
You'd back her each way 7-4, Fran. Let's go on to day 2. We're going to kick off with the Queen Mary, the first of the juvenile fillies races. Again, this race, obviously a few of these fillies could be heading elsewhere, the Albany amongst those. But Born to Rock for Eve Johnson-Hutton, 4-1 favourite as we are on live right now on Monday. You've got Beautiful Diamond, Midnight Affair, Gotta Love a Grey. Anyone got an angle on the 2-year-old fillies at this stage? I'll go to you, Fran, first.
Look, Aidan O'Brien's Matarika could go for the Albany, but she'd be a candidate for the Queen Mary as well. She's very impressive. Looked at a video of Crimson Advocate, trained by Wesley Ward, isn't it? And George Weaver, sorry. Yeah. Very, very impressive in winning as well. And Born to Rock, Beautiful Diamond, both very impressive in their wins to date. But at the 5 furlong fillies trip, I'd be looking at the American trained horses. I think it's a good setup for them. And Crimson Advocate, a little bit of a shot in the dark, but it's very interesting.
Crimson Advocate, right, lovely stuff. Frank, you know the price of that at the time. You have a look at that price and I'll get Billy's thoughts on 2-year-olds.
Yeah, wide open race.
Producer Mark, get us a price for Crimson Advocate, please. Thank you. Go on, Billy.
Wide open race. Fran mentioned a number of them there. Born to Rock was impressive at Yarmouth, but that form wasn't working out particularly well. Beautiful Diamond won well at Nottingham the other day, and Carol Burke seems to have a very strong hand. You've got Richard Fahey, who's obviously a Sporting Life ambassador. In his column during the week, he said he thinks he's taking his strongest team of 2-year-olds ever to Royal Ascot this year, which is a big statement for a man that has won the last 2 Norfolks. He's going to run Midnight Affair here. She won the Hillary Needler at the weekend. Probably didn't need to improve. She'll need to step up again, but she'd have a squeak. But the one I'd like here, and I'm not convinced she's going to run, she's also in the Albany, is Donncha O'Brien's Porta Fortuna. She's 2 from 2 in Ireland. She won over 6 furlongs at Naas the last day, but she really only scraped home. She quickened clear and just hung on. So I'd love to see her back to 5 furlongs. She's about 12-1 in the Queen Mary. If she got in and ran at that price, then I think she'd be a great bet.
Okay, Porta Fortuna for Billy. Watch out for her if she goes here. Fran's selection, Crimson Advocate. Producer Mark's told me he's 10-1 as we record on Monday night. Frank, Hickey.
Yeah, I thought Porta
Fortuna
would go for the Albany, but I'd agree with Billy. If she rocked up here, she'd be very interesting. I thought Midnight Affair, while it wasn't massively impressive at Beverley, I did think it was a bit of a ride of, don't be too hard or just do enough. And she was very unlucky at Newmarket the first day, I think. And the fact Soprano was so strong in the market would suggest they're probably well above average. And I think a really strong pace where something will take her deep into it would really suit Midnight Affair. I wouldn't give up on her at all. I think she's got a decent each way chance. But yeah, Portaventura would definitely be a player if she drops back to 5.
Did you tip up Midnight Affair at the weekend on the podcast?
I did, yeah.
Did you nap her up?
I napped her up, yeah. Oh, yeah, napping up, tipping up.
Napping up 4 to 5 winners from the Horses Made podcast, folks. You want more of those gems from Frank Hickey?
It was 5-4 when it tipped to.
It was 5-4.
Extra place.
All round nice guy back in the shop again.
No, you're not all round nice. Remember, this fella, all round nice guy. All right, Midnight Affair, I'll put you down for as your selection, yeah?
Yeah. If Portaventura ends up here, I might.
Okay, you might jump ship to Portaventura, who gets kind of 2 votes, and Crimson Advocate. For Fran, let's move on to another fillies race, but this for the older horses, the Duke of Cambridge Group 2, those possibly not good enough for the Queen Anne. Jumbly, a really interesting horse here for Joseph, now with Joseph, having formerly been trained by the Charltons. You got Prosperous Voyage, will she back up after the win at Epsom? Inspiral, as we record, is still in the race, but we assume she's going for the Queen Anne. You've got Laurel, who bombed out in the Lockinge, and Above the Curve, who would be dropping in trip for Joseph. Right, Billy, to you.
Yeah, we'll start with Jumbly. Joseph O'Brien's a big money purchase from Roger and Harry Charlton. I think they paid 1.25 million or something for her. She shaped really nicely at the Curragh. She was second to Just Beautiful, who was in this race, but I believe isn't going to run. So, she wouldn't need to improve an awful lot to be very competitive in the race. She'll certainly have a chance. Prosperous Voyage, like you said, won it at Epsom the other day. I'm sure I don't see why she wouldn't go here. And if she does, she'll give a good account. And Laurel is one that I wouldn't rule out. She was disappointing in the Lockinge, but look, she was on the wrong side of the track that day, so I'd be happy enough to forgive her that run, and I could see her running well if she gets in, or if she runs. But it's a wide open race.
Yeah, it is. Frank, you're taking this?
Yeah, assuming Inspired won't run.
Yeah.
I didn't realise that Just Beautiful was an intended runner. Like, she wants just fast ground, and her record when she gets fast ground is very, very solid. I'd be with Laurel. I would think she had excuses in the Lockinge, and the fact she's gone off 130 there in a Group 1 against the Coles versus coming back here to Group 2 against Fillies and Mares. I think I'd forgive her. She was on the wrong side, soft ground, things didn't go right for her. back in here on what we assume would be fast ground. Yeah, she looked a fair price, and I'd imagine she's shorting up a bit. Like, Jumley's got a chance, but like, favourite?
Is she favourite because we know she's definitely running?
Definitely running.
Yeah, is the type of race that she's hardly going to run anywhere else.
No, but like, where else is Laurel going to run, really?
Jumbly will have a bit to find on figures. She's about £5 behind Prosperous Voyage and Laurel.
Yeah, I just look at it. I'd be surprised if, provided Laurel runs, which I assume she will. Be surprised, like, if she's gone off, close to favourite in the Lockage, or did she even end up going off favourite?
130 favourite, or
Favourite,
close
yeah.
enough, yeah. Yeah.
I
Modern
know-
Games big drifter, wasn't he, on the day?
Yeah, I think she's. Yeah,
Okay.
I think she had excuse at Newbury, so.
Cork boys agree again. Laurel, right, Fran.
It's a race that could change a lot. 10:01 Sunday morning, John Gosling doesn't declare in Spiral for the Tuesday. Says, "Oh, she's not quite ready. We'll go for the Group 2," which is
Well,
not
if
beyond the
that
bounds of-
happens 4-1 right now, is
It's
an
very-
All-Ireland prize about in Spiral. But
It's very, very interesting. Jumbly is at the Curragh. She shaped very well on her debut. Looked like she was going to pick up to win. Looked to get tired inside the final 100 yards, but she is short, and maybe her best for her form has come with a cut in the ground. Not, even though she wanted to track on fast ground, she needed every yard of the trip to get going on that occasion. Is there any chance above the curve could be rerouted there? She's entries in 1.5 races.
I'd prefer to see her in a longer race, to be honest. I think she'd be vulnerable over a mile, but she might.
it is the straight mile, though, isn't it? So
is,
it's
yeah.
like a mile and a bit, really, for these. It's,
Yeah.
But yeah, this would be her first run over a mile since 2-year-old days.
It'd be hard to see it.
that even.
It'd be
Yeah.
hard to see it. For me, Prosperous Voyage was very good in Epsom. I think she's going to be the value, assuming that in Spiral doesn't turn up. And Paddy Toomey, if he's not running just beautiful. Now, I've been over the cliff twice, and her Mia Dominia is probably the most expensive loser I've had all year when she got beat the last day. But if she turns up at 20-1, I'll be having something in her. I think there's a better filly in there than what we've seen to date.
Okay. Mia Domina, one for each way, but Prosperous Voyager, put you down as your selection, and 2 votes for Laurel from Billy and Frank. On to the Prince of Wales, often the feature of the week, all age 1.25 mile, Group 1. The news, obviously, last weekend was disappointing. The Desert Crown is out, but it's still an absolute cracker. Luxembourg, a horse who, I don't know how punters feel about this fella. He disappoints, then he wins, and he disappoints, then he wins. You got a Derby winner in Adayar, Bay Bridge, who maybe needs it a little bit softer than it's going to be. And I'm hearing plenty tips from my Prospero as well. They dominate the betting. Fran, off to you for the Prince of Wales.
Yeah, my Prospero was 8-1 yesterday before the absence, of course, of
Desert Crown.
Desert Crown.
That Dante winner, yeah.
Yeah, that Dante winner. Epsom Derby, Dead Derby, excuse me, before somebody tweets about that.
Too late.
And,
It's already happened.
yeah, he was a horse at a price I was quite keen on. I think the track will suit him very well. A good return to action in the Lockage over mile. Luxembourg, we're going to find out if he can back up runs. I'd forgiven the arc last year. He to be rushed and hard trained to get to a peak for the Irish Champion Stakes after winning the Royal Whip. And he looked like a boxer on that occasion, was trained to the minute. So with soft ground and maybe just being below his best, you can forgive the arc. Very good return to action off the back of that comeback run, winning the Tattersall's Gold Cup. And for me, he is the horse, if he looks well in the ring and pitches up to what he did in the Tattersall's Gold Cup, I think he's the one to beat. I think he'll have things fall his way nicely. Bay Bridge, fast ground. He got beaten last year, albeit by the pace of the race, maybe somewhat, but the ground, he definitely doesn't let down as well as he does with a cut in the ground. Adiyar, I'd have to take him on again. So yeah, Luxembourg's the one.
If he looks good in the ring, how are we going to know? We're not there, Fran. So are we going to listen to Francesca Comani? Is that it?
And she's this amazing thing now called TV's PK, and if you turn them on, you can actually look at it and make up your
They all
mind.
kind of look the same to most people, to be fair. They all kind of look the same. So as long as Francesca gives it the nod.
And TV adds £10 as well. Like, what's that?
But if they all have £10 extra, they all have
I'm
£10.
looking a bit plump. Yeah.
Luxembourg then for Fran. All right, Frank.
Yeah, look, get the Tassel Gold Cup. Look, he got to dictate the pace, really, didn't he? And it was slowly running. Bay Bridge had every chance as well. When you look at the sectionals, he wasn't inconvenienced. Yeah, I'd agree. He probably wants slightly easier ground to beat his very best. He's not a certain runner, but if the French horse, Sid Camille, ran, I'd be giving him a squeak. He ties in with Ernesto last year. He was narrowly beaten by him in the Grand Prix de Paris. Ernesto obviously ties in with Luxembourg in the Irish Champion Stakes run. Sid Camille then found the Japan Cup too hot. That'll be a very hot race. But he has run well this year. He was second in Longcham's reappearance. Bay Bridge is actually behind him, a neck behind him in third. And he won a Group 2 with Sean T recently. He's not a certain runner for this, but he had a very easy race, and the trainer said that he wouldn't rule out Royal Ascot if he came out of the race well. I think his long-term aim is the Arc, but yeah, just at his price, looking at it, as you said, there's question marks over them all at the front. Like, they're all good horses, but like Bay Bridge might want a bit of cut. ADR, yeah, 10 furlongs and fast. You know, Luxembourg, bit hit and miss. Even My Prospero. You know, there's none of them are bomb-proof, we put it that way. And this fella's a price where, if he was definitely running, I wouldn't be surprised if he beat a couple of them. Maybe he mightn't win the race, but I thought he'd maybe hit the frame.
Double figure odds, and I've listened to a few previews and no one's mentioning anything outside of the big four. So Sim Camille there for Frank, hopefully declared for the race. Billy?
I'm a Luxembourg fan, PK. I think people are saying he's inconsistent and whatever. I think there's genuine excuses for his poor efforts. You can put a line through his run in the Arc. He pulled a muscle. His comeback run at the Curragh was just in a messy race. They went no gallop. Visualisation got a great ride that day. And I thought Luxembourg looked right back to his best the last day in the Tattersall's Gold Cup. Yes, he was well ridden by Ryan Moore. Some people tried to make the case that Bay Bridge was unlucky because he got caught in a pocket, but he had over a furlong to go past Luxembourg and he couldn't do it. I don't see why he's going to turn that form around. I think Luxembourg, now that they're getting a clear run at him, there might be a little bit more to come from him. I'd expect them to ride him very similarly at Ascot to how they did at the Curragh. And, you know, this is the deepest division in racing at the moment. There's literally only a couple of pounds between a handful of these horses. But at the moment, Luxembourg is top of the tree, and I think he might confirm that. The one that I would be afraid of is My Prospero. I think the mile just didn't suit him the last of the step back up to a mile and a half on better ground will suit. I think he's a good horse, but I think Luxembourg is the one to beat here.
He's had a quiet start to the season, William Haggis, but I think they're just getting rolling. So My Prospero, one to watch out for, but Luxembourg gets 2 nods from Fran and also from Billy and Frank. Watch out for Sim Camille. Producer Mark has thrown down the Royal Hunt Cup to preview, lads. Which is a very easy race this far out to find the winner. 9's the field right now. Well, Saga in the colours of the King, one of a couple of runners I think he might have. That one for John Thady Gosling. We've got Gali, who's a potential market mover. Astro King again in this race, but different trainer now, Astro King. Used to be with Sir Michael Stout. Intelligent, Awel, Parotto. Who wants the Royal Hunt Cup, lads? Frank?
I'll definitely go, yeah.
Okay, all right, off you go.
Look, you're obviously doing without the benefit of the draw, and the draw can be huge. Like, you don't really want to be drawn in the middle.
Or the stall's not open on time.
Yeah. To be fair, yeah, that's something you could anticipate, though, isn't it? I would say you want to be drawn 1 to 8, or maybe like 20 plus, ideally. It's very difficult to make all over a mile on the straight track as well, so you don't really want to be getting horses that will be on the pace. It's advantageous to be held up over a mile on the straight track as well. So when you put it all together, there's a couple I'd mention that they're probably going to be big prices. I'm not saying they're a bet, but Dawn of Liberation for Richard Hand, he's a horse I think will pop up in a handicap at some stage this year. There was a bit more the last day when he was 4th, and Takra Bay has run well in Ascot before. He was 2nd to Tempest last year in a handicap of I think 106, and he ended up finishing 3rd in the Balmoral at a price. He's come down to a mark that he can be effective from as well. But the one that stands out like a sore thumb is Parotto. Switched from Marcus Tregonning to Roger Varian. I thought he ran a nice race in the Victoria Cup, but 7 furlongs on softest ground wouldn't be his deal at all. If you go back 2 years ago, he won the Britannia in fine style off a mark of 99. He's now rated 96. 95 got in last year, so I think he should just creep in. Provided he's drawn in the right place with, you know, a bit of pace around him and stuff. Again, he's about 12 to 1, and you know, you'd probably be guessing, but if he gets a nice draw, he's definitely going to be there. Look, Astro King, is everyone's on him. He was so unlucky at York, he probably should have won, and his record at Ascot's very strong. Like, he's placed in the...
His record of winning is awful, though.
Awful, but like, as in from a hitting the frame point of view, and he's handicapped, he'd be bang there. But for me, Parotto's the one that I think just looks absolutely primed to peak.
Parotto for Frank. Oh man, that was a strong opinion. I wasn't expecting one. Anyone else with the Hunt Cup?
I'd, believe it or not, I'm going to agree
You're
with
going
Frank.
nap. You're going to go nap. Oh, you're agreeing with... Unbelievable.
Yeah, I had to consult my Timeform colleagues about this one, but yeah, they're very sweet on Parotto. Really encouraging run the Victoria Cup last time. For all the reasons Frank said, he's a former course winner. He's on a good mark. The varying yard looks to be going well, so he's £3 clear on Timeform ratings, which doesn't happen very often in big handicaps like this, so very sweet on him. Latam was a horse that really impressed me at the Curragh. I thought he looked like a potential group horse. Disappointed he couldn't win the Spring Mile afterwards, and possibly he needs ease in the ground, but he's one I wouldn't rule out. If you got a big price about him, I wouldn't put anyone off him, but like I said, the Timeform boys are all over Parato here.
All we need is Parato to be switched to Robert Tyner now at this stage, and the Cork Mafia be going nuts.
Back in the days, we'd be going around the shops and banding the Clonakilty back in Tyner horses.
Fran, any thoughts on Royal Hunt Cup?
Look, there is actually going to be extra place in this, I'm sure. 32 runners.
We'll give you 3.
We might just go 4 just to spite Fran.
I'll fall into the trap as usual for Blessum and Escobar, big price. They can see them run into the money, and if they had a good draw or things fall away, they could win it. I'm fascinated by horse of William Haggis's, that Latham is worth to mention, of course, and Dunham, trained by Natalie Lupini, but Millie Bosk is really interesting. One run for the stable, Linkfield, last year, caught the eye massively, finishing off late and fast down towards the outside. Not being seen then as a 5-year-old ex-French form on sound surfaces on polytrack or artificial surfaces in France. He's only 14 to 1, and he's got a John Smith's Cup entry later that month, or in July. He's just really interesting now. He's an unknown quantity. If he's there with Mark Wandon, he could be really interesting if you rise him over Latham.
Millie Boss, was it?
Millie Boss.
Millie Boss, all right.
French Derby, that horse, wasn't
Yes, yeah.
Oh, third in French Rattle. Millie Boss and double figure price
Rated
also.
97, so...
Okay, well, that's a nice angle. And Parato, strong votes for Parato in the Royal Hunt Cup. Before we nap up, before a quick break and get Wednesday naps, we've also got the Kensington Palace, the Windsor Castle, the Queen's Vase, which Aidan O'Brien usually wins. Frank, you're nodding about the Queen's Vase?
Peking Opera, if he ends up in the Queen's Vase, I'd be very interested in him. Windsor Castle, I've already mentioned Barnwell Boy. This was the race that was nominated after his win at Goodwood. He will likely be favoured or close to it, depending on what Wesley Ward puts in the race. But yeah, I think Wesley Ward will probably make the market, and he might be second, and I fancy him. He's good.
Yeah, Wesley Ward horses tend to drift. The price on them is mad. They can drift massively.
Well, I think it's they're put in a very cautious price when
Yes.
you don't have entries and you haven't priced it up, like in massive detail. And what happens is then they kind of get out to their true price then, the day before or the morning of the race. So because you get, one every so often of them are absolute superstars. They're kind of all priced as if they potentially are, and then they find their level.
Find their level, all right. I'm getting the wrap-up signal from producer Mark. So let's get naps. Wednesday naps, Franberry? Luxembourg in the Prince of Wales. Billy?
2 for Luxembourg.
2 votes for Luxembourg in the Prince of Wales. Frank Hickey?
I'll go Laurel in the Duke of Cambridge.
Laurel in the Duke of Cambridge. That is day 2 wrapped up nicely. We'll be back with day 3 right after this.
Betting can add a little excitement to any sporting event.
But only if it's done safely, responsibly, and within our means.
Never gamble when angry or feeling low.
Set yourself a limit for time, money, or both.
No matter what the problem is, gambling is never.
Never the answer.
There is always someone to talk to when you feel gambling is becoming a stress.
Check out responsiblegaming.paddypower.com.
And welcome back. We are rolling straight into Thursday, which is day 3 of Royal Ascot. And we kick off with the Norfolk, which is the Group 2 for 2-year-olds. Elite Status has looked one of the most impressive 2-year-olds so far this season. And American Rascal, who represents Wes Ward, who've already touched on his juveniles and has the breeding to be a Royal Ascot winner, doesn't he?
Yeah, with Lady Aurelia, who obviously scorched the turf at Ascot. Elite Status was very impressive in the National Stakes. Very good time figure as well. He deserves to be favourite, and they'll all have to go to beat him. But it's still the same, he's a short enough price. There's a few that are interesting enough. Nocha Magica, very impressive at Cork on debut, over 5 furlongs on heavy testing ground. Was touched off in the Marble Stakes up to 6 furlongs. Did travel really well, just kind of got out battled a little bit. I think to drop back to 5 would probably suit him. He'd be a player. Maximum Impact for Alice Haynes. Was impressive at Ascot in his second start, won on debut as well. Amor Racing obviously got a lot of nice 2-year-olds. I think he's up there with the best of them. We've seen so far.
Amor Racing have a lot of ammo in the 2-year-old department. No? No?
You're supposed to just listen until
I
you're
am, sorry.
finished. Right, come on.
Cut that out. Choose
Say that one, Conor Murray.
Yeah, like the one I thought that was very interesting is Mon Sleeve for Kevin Ryan. Won at York on debut. I thought in very nice style. That's a maiden that was won by Project Dante, who was beaten a long neck in the Norfolk a few years ago. What was Santry, the Declan Carroll horse that was second to Sioux Nation, that he won that maiden as well. He was unlucky in that. Sioux Nation was off the far side. He was drawn high and he won his side by a long way, and Sioux Nation did him. You'd know as well that I'd back Santry.
Clearly.
Very, very painful. And yeah, I think there's a lot to like. Kevin Ryan tends to send his best ones to York for maidens there. I think he won it with Irene as well, who went on and finished second to Washington DC in a Windsor Castle, beating a neck. Lots to like about the way it won at York. It's by Exceed Excel, out of Victory Wave, who was rated 104 for Godolphin. It's bred to be useful. And if he rocked up now, I wouldn't put a line to him. I think each way, again, you'd assume, hopefully you might get a big field. Maybe not, but we won't be getting 5 places anyway, Fran. Maybe 4 if we get 14 or 13 or 14. But yeah, I'd give him a chance. Elite Status definitely deserves to be favourite, but I'd definitely be keeping an eye on that Mon Sleeve and Paddy Toomey's horse as well. I think it's got plenty of
Okay. Mon Sleeve we'll put down as the selection from Frank. Fran?
Yeah, sticking to the Irish Junior, I've seen Elite Status win. He was very impressive in standing, but Devious, trained by Donnacha O'Brien, created a big impression when he won. And he only had one run to date, obviously going there, but he looks a nice prospect. I presume he's going for Norfolk. Nash and Magic, I agree with Frank, stepping back down and trip, a stiff 5 will suit him very, very well. And yeah, they're two definitely worth mentioning. I think they're currently 14 to 1 odds, or 12 to 1, excuse me. They're both valuing that, with the Elite Status being quite short in the market. Alabama's in the betting, but I think we'll see him in the nursery later in the year, probably the way things are going for him at the minute.
A bit disappointing that Alabama so far. Billy?
Yeah, from a ratings point of view, Patrick, Elite Status is obviously going to be very hard to beat. The 109p we gave him after winning the National Stakes, he bought it up in the National Stakes. That rating would be good enough to win an average renewal of the Norfolk. So he's clearly the horse to beat. He deserves to be favourite. We don't know exactly how good these American horses are. American Rascal, obviously Wesley Ward's. George Weaver, who we mentioned earlier, is a horse called No Name Metz, who might run in this. He's supposed to be very quick. But I really like Nacho Magica. I think he was impressive at Cork, as Frank said. And look, if you stop the Marble Hill after 5.5 furlongs, he's practically still on the bridle. He was the last horse off the bridle. He looked like he was going to win easily, and he just didn't get home over 6. So back down to 5, a well-run race. I think it'll suit him down to the ground. Fast ground as well. He might not be good enough to beat an Elite Status. There might be 1 or 2 too good for him, but he's about 12 to 1, possibly bigger than the place. I don't see there being 3 horses better than him in the race. I think he's a cracking each way bet.
Lovely, cracking each way bet. Nacho Magica, who also Fran mentioned, and Frank will remember, a Monashlee each way. So interestingly, with the 2 hot pots, Elite Status and American Rascal, top of the market, a few each way selections for the Norfolk. On to the Ribblesdale, the Oaks of Royal Ascot, so to speak. Infinite Cosmos for Sir Michael Stout, making the market at the moment. Soul Sisters, we record on Monday night, is still in the race, but we assume she's not going to be running it, or else she's an All-Ireland price at 7 to 2. Blue Stocking, Save the Last Dance, bit disappointing at Epsom. Ground maybe too quick for her. And then you've got
Second in the Oaks.
Yeah, but look, she was like, she was so good at Chester, and she was expected to win the Oaks. I know she was. I was disappointed because she was in an Ascot, right, Fran? All right, fine. I was disappointed with her. You're fine with her. Save the Last Dance. Will she go here, Fran?
Irish Oaks.
Yeah, I would have thought so. I would have thought so. As is that in Warm Heart could be interesting. I'll start with you, Fran, then the Ribblesdale.
Aidan O'Brien will win it, but it won't be saved last dance. She'll go for the Irish Oaks, I presume. Warm Heart stepping up to 1.5 miles. I think the way she outbattled Blue Stocking. Now, Blue Stocking looked very much work in progress in Newbury. If Ross Ryan was able to get her a bit more organised, but Warm Heart, she just stuck out that head. And I think put another 2 furlongs on her, she'll go very well. And the current odds of 6 to 1 in a race at the top of the market that looks like it could break up. Soul Sister won't go. Infinite Cosmos. Wasn't overly sold by her in the Moosedorf. All the forms look good. I'm not sure she really let down in quick ground again, a second time on it after running at Newmark. I think she could be vulnerable, although a step up and trip should suit her, as is that Dermot Wells would be of interest if she goes. But Warm Heart, I think she's going to be a filly that finds a way to win.
Okay, that's kind of confident there. Frank, your thoughts?
Yeah, you'd assume the front 2 from the Oaks wouldn't be running here. I'd agree, Warm Heart, very interesting. Blue Stocking, very interesting. I'd be against Infinite Cosmos myself. you were disappointed with the run in the Musadora. Obviously, that form's worked out with Soul Sister going on and winning the Oaks. For me, I'd take a chance on one if it does run here. Dance in the Grass for Mark Johnson. If you go back to the 1,000 guineas, halfway through, I think it's going to finish out the back of the telly, and then she finds the second wind and stays on into fifth, albeit beaten a long way behind the front two. But she's bred to want a mile and a half. She's cracksman out of a mare who wanted a mile and a half, and I think she may have definitely run over a mile 6, if not won over a mile 6. So she definitely wants a trip. You go back to last year, she won on debut at Sandown, won a listed race over 7 furlongs, beating Fairy Cross at Sandown as well. I think the slightly easy ground in the May Hill counted against her, and she dropped back to 7 furlongs for the Rockfell, which would have been probably a bit sharp for her. So I think she's 33 to 1. If she did turn up here, on ratings as of now, she wouldn't be too far from the top. It's not the deepest race in the world, provided the two from the Oaks don't run. She looks a big price. I think she'll definitely improve for the trip. So I could see her running well at a price.
Dance in the Grass for Frank each way. Warm Heart for Fran. Billy.
One we haven't mentioned, and I don't know if she's going to run or not, but certainly if she does, from a ratings perspective, she'll be the one to beat, and that's Running Line of John Gosden's, or John and Teddy Gosden, I should say. Look, she had a mishap in the Oaks. I don't know how she's come out of that, but if she's fully fit and if she's okay after it, she'll certainly, from a ratings point of view, she'll be the one to beat in this one. Obviously, stepping up to a mile and a half is a bit of an unknown, but if she stays, she should be hard to beat. The lads have mentioned the other main protagonists, Warm Heart and Blue Stocking. Interestingly, Blue Stocking, beautifully bred filly. She's out of Emulous, who many people might remember won a matron stake. She's by Camelot. From a sectional times point of view, look, from the naked eye, you could see she was unlucky at Newbury the last day, but from a sectional point of view, she comes out a bit ahead of Warm Heart, so we have her actually rated ahead of Warm Heart going into Ascot. We think she might be able to turn around that form, so she's certainly one to keep a close eye on.
Okay, keep an eye on Blue Stocking. If Running Line is in, happy days, go. Currently a very big price as well, so we'll see how we go. That's also Dance in the Grass for Frank and Fran, sticking with Warm Heart. Right, move on to the big Group 1 on the Thursday, arguably the big Group 1 of the week, the Gold Cup, or the Ascot Gold Cup. Potential changing of the guard here. Elder off, Coltrane making the market at the moment. Obviously, we have the winner from 2 years ago, we hope to, in Subjectivist, but no Kyprios, Frank, and no Stradivarius, so it's potentially a change in the guard.
Yeah, it's tricky. Elder off. Obviously, he needs to prove he stays 2.5, but he has been shaping like he wants, an extreme trip. Like he only seems to be getting going at the end of his race over mile 6. Subjectivist ran okay in Maidan off the huge absence. Obviously, he'd run prior to that out in the Middle East as well. You just wonder, is he not quite the same horse he was before getting injured? Like, if you thought he was going to come back to that sort of form, he's a huge price, but I'd be surprised if he can bounce back to that level. Coltrane, obviously very impressed in Sagaro Stakes. I'd be giving up on Trushan, particularly with the likelihood of fast ground. And yeah, it's tricky. I'd give a mention to one at a price. Look, mightn't be good enough to win, but El Habib, I thought he ran a big, he only made his debut at the start of last year, and he made his debut in a listed race, then was tried in the Derby, wasn't disgraced, finished 10th or something. But he ran a good race in the Ledger. It was a little bit lucky not to finish a bit closer at a price, and he came out and won a listed race at Ascot over a mile 6, beating Gia Velato. I was just had to check the spelling because my pronunciation isn't great.
I think you nailed it.
That horse has gone and won a York this year. And just at a price, I think, look, he's not guaranteed to get 2.5 miles, but at the same time, the way he's been finishing his races would suggest 2 miles should be no problem for him. And just at a price, and the fact he's won an Ascot before, I'd give him a squeak, and he's about 16 to 1, I think. I could see him being potentially even bigger, maybe close to the race time, but yeah, I'd give him a squeak. Of the front few, I think Coltrane looks rock solid to run his race, and he's probably the one to beat. But yeah, I'd just give a squeak to El Habib at a price.
Big price. El Habib each way for Frank. Fran, I didn't mention Emily Dickinson because I wanted to come to you. You were there at Leopardstown when she was hugely disappointing. What was your take on it?
I thought pre-race she looked to be in season. She was flashing her tail a little bit and ran that way. She's probably better with a lead and having to make her own running, but it was a lifeless effort, if you like, and you'd hope for connection's sake there was a legitimate excuse. is she better with a cut in the ground? The key race for the Ascot Gold Cup, it's great to see new generation coming on of 4-year-olds. Is last year St. Ledger Doncaster for me. Alderhoff won it. Haskell was 4th. Givaletto, of course, won in York. He was 3rd. Emily Dixon was 5th and El Habib was 6th. So that's, you know, the new generation of steers coming through. For me, Haskell would be the one I take out of that bunch. I think stepping up and trip, what he did in Newbury on seasonal debut, I thought was very taken. Loved the way he stuck his head out going to line. Now look, he's got to put another mile onto that to get a Gold Cup trip. But of that new generation, he's the one that I'd like most of the 4-year-olds. And I think Broome, I'd love if Ryan Moore rode Broome. I think when he gets back up to 2.5 miles, totally unexposed to the trip, time will tell. He's a 7-year-old now that had been running the wrong trip for maybe the last 3 years. And for me, currently at 8-1, Broome and Haskell are the two that I like.
Keeping the faith with Broome. That is quite surprising. Right, Billy, your take?
The most open Gold Cup I can remember in a long time, PK. On Timeform ratings, I think there's £3 between the top 10 as things stand now. Obviously, they're not all going to run, but it's a wide open race. Coltrane probably deserves to be favoured. He looks pretty solid. Elderhoff, last year's Ledger winner, won at Ascot last year. The step up and trip should suit him. He might just be able to improve past Coltrane at this point in his career. But there are a couple of really other interesting ones. The most interesting horse in the race is John and Thady Gosden again.
Poor old Thady. You're always forgetting him.
I know. Courage Mon Ami, a completely unexposed horse. He's only had 3 runs. 2 of them were on all weather, and he won a handicap at Goodwood the other day. It was a falsely run handicap, but just the way he won it suggested he's much better than a handicapper. We've no idea whether he'll get 2.5 miles. He'll certainly shapes like he'll get 2, but the fact that they've even entered him in the race seems very significant to me. He'd be a really interesting runner. And the other one that we have to mention is Echoes and Rain. Willie Mullen says he's going to run her here. It's a big step up for her. She did well on the flat last year. She very nearly pulled off the Irish Cesaro, which just got chinned on the line. I'm not sure she'll get 2.5 miles in this company. That'd be my worry. She barely gets it over hurdles, and I just think she might lack a bit of class. But she'll be an interesting runner, and she adds to what's going to be a fascinating race.
You like her, don't you, Frank? You have a bit of history at Echoes and Rain.
Yeah. I just worry about the trip for her.
Yeah, exactly.
I could see her travelling to like the turn-in, but maybe not.
I believe Tom Marquand is booked rider. He's in association.
Yeah,
with
he's
the owners.
associated with the owners, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Craig Keysvetter, as you know from the cricket. You're a huge fan of cricket, aren't you, Fran?
Yeah, rounders. Yeah, I used to play rounders actually a lot at home. So.
Irish version of cricket, yeah. Right, to wrap up, so Broome / Haskell for Fran, El Habib and each way price for Frank, and a notable Courage Mon Ami if he runs, if he's declared. Yeah. Keep an eye for him from Billy. That is the Ascot Gold Cup over 2.5 miles. Right, on the Thursday, we have a load of handicaps and a Group 3 as well. You've got the King George handicap over 1.5 miles, the Britannia over the straight mile for the 3-year-olds, the Hampton Court, the Buckingham Palace Stakes. Is there anything lurking there, lads? Go on, Fran.
Well, look, the King George handicap, obviously, it depends what Aidan run it. You know, he'll have an exposed horse stepping into that. But Wonder Legend, trained by James Ferguson, was very impressive. Winning at Doncaster recently, at the end of April, he's gone up to the mid-90s on the back of that. I believe he's going there for the race, and if he can let down in fast ground, he's a definite improver.
Okay. Anyone else? I wasn't getting much there.
Without entries, it's very difficult to know.
It's like
if you have entries, you might be able to pick something out.
No sneaky ones then. Thursday naps then. We'll get a nap for you for the Thursday. I will go to you, Billy Nash, first.
My nap is going to be each way, Notcha Magica in the Norfolk.
Notcha Magica in the Norfolk for Paddy Toomey. Fran?
Kind of split on the Aidan O'Brien train early in the week anyway. Warm Heart, Galileo will find a way to win 1.5 miles. She'll excel.
Warm Heart in the Ribblesdale. And Frank?
So wouldn't be the most confident day for me now. I might just go with Monasleeve each way in the Norfolk.
Oh, lovely. Okay, Monasleeve each way in the Norfolk. So a couple of votes in the Norfolk. You're splitting there, lads. Now there's a bit of a divide now developing. Is it West Cork, East Cork? I don't know where.
Mid Cork versus West Cork.
All right, okay, all right. Before we go on to day 4, a reminder, if you are watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe to the Paddy Parrott Racing YouTube channel. Loads of good stuff coming up for Royal Ascot, including Ruby Walsh heading to a bunch of yards with some hopefuls heading just before they get on the plane and boat. And don't forget also, if you are betting at Royal Ascot or any week, please do so responsibly. There's loads of tools for you on responsiblegaming.paddyparrott.com as well. Right, on to the Friday we go. We have more sprinting, the Commonwealth Cup, this time for the 3-year-olds. It's been a brilliant addition to the festival, and Little Big Bear got back on track after his disappointing run in the 2000 Guineas, winning at Haydock. You've also got Sakir, who similarly disappointed in the 2000 Guineas. And then the rest don't count, Billy Nash. Or that's how the betting has it anyway.
That's how the betting have it. I wouldn't say the rest don't count. Shaquille is one that I'd be interested in. He's a very progressive horse, 5 from 6, stepping up to Group 1 level. He certainly deserves a crack at it, but I'm very much in the Little Big Bear camp here. You know, the Guineas was a non-event. Obviously, he returned lame, but looked right back on track at Haydock the last day. Yes, he was probably on the best part of the track, but it was still a really encouraging effort, and I think he'll step forward again. He's a big, gross horse, got better with racing last year, and I expect him to do the same. If he can match the 2-year-old form that he showed last year, and there's no reason why he can't, then he's clearly the one to beat here.
He must have ranked pretty highly on the Timeform 2-year-old last year, was he?
He was our top-rated 2-year-old last year,
Okay, not surprising.
courtesy of his effort in the Phoenix, and if he can get back to that level, then I think he'll win this as well.
Okay, so Little Big Bear. Frank Hickey?
Yeah, I just can't see beyond Little Big Bear winning, to be honest. Look, you've forgiven the Guineas run. He was good at Haydock, albeit he was on the stand side where it was an advantage. But yeah, it just showed he was back to somewhere near his best, and we know his best is very good. I think Sakir is too short. I'd be expecting him to drift. I'd be with Billy on Shaquille's got plenty of ability. A bit of a rogue in him, I think. But he's plenty of ability. I think he wouldn't be far away from hitting the places at least. And Jesse trains Ocean Quest. Very good horse as well. Very impressive on reappearance, and probably unlucky not to win the last day. I'd much prefer to be back in the two of them over Sakir. But for me, Little Big Bear,
Okay.
can't be seeing him beaten, to be honest.
2 votes for the Bear. Fran?
Yeah, Ocean Quest, I'd agree with Frank. Key to her chances of having a rail to run with. If she's got left rail to run with, it'll give her 3 or 4 lengths. So I can see her double figure odds outrunning that if she gets a good setup. Hung her chance away in Naas, but Little Big Bear, what he did all through last year, and the way he bounced back at Haydock, very, very hard to see beyond him. He rates, you know, he's 13 to 8 now. You can see him off, maybe going off even money or shade of odds on the day. Sakir, I'd agree, is vulnerable. Shaquille is the unknown quantity. I think he's really stepped forward what he did at Newbury, and say for one bomb out at York last year behind Caldine in the A come over 7 furlongs. He's a real sprinter going places.
Okay, all right, so that's kind of 3 votes for Little Big Bear. Also, notable mentions for Shaquille. I'll leave the basketball pun out, will I? Are you okay? I was going to throw in a slam dunk situation where... Can I? Oh, thanks. Sorry, no.
Give me permission.
No, okay.
One per day.
Too late. One per day. Oh, okay, all right. I'll get one for the next few races.
I think what you'd say is that Sakir would be a negative in the race for me, and it seems that the lads think the same. So, like, if you wanted each way side, Shaquille or Ocean Quest, but Little Big Bear. Yeah.
Little Big Bear definitely getting, so I'd imagine might be napped up as well. We move on to the coronation, and really nice notes provided by producer Mark, by the way. Usually he gives me a few horses. Clearly, producer Mark thinks this is a 2-horse race, because all I've got are 2 horses here, Tahira and Moj. Some people might be surprised by the pricing that Tahira is that much shorter than Moj, or is it basically she will improve and go past Moj? What are your thoughts, Frank?
You just want to make sure they both end up there.
Are there concerns they won't? I know Saib bin Surur definitely confirmed Moj for the race.
Yeah. You just hopefully they both get there anyway. I suppose the way Tahira made up her ground at Newmarket, you might feel she might be able to reverse. It wouldn't be a race I'd be too keen on getting involved in at this stage anyway. I'd be just happy to wait and see. They're not, both of them are relatively short, so fast ground for proper fast ground would be a small. I know it was good, maybe on the faster, slightly on the fast side of good at the Curragh, but if it's proper fast ground at Ascot, it would be a small question mark.
Okay.
But I do think she's probably got the more ability of the two overall.
Fair enough. Is it a match, Billy?
Yes.
And who wins the match?
Maj for me. I felt Tahira at Newmarket, I don't know what the lads thought. I felt if they kept going all the way up Newmarket High Street to the Clock Tower, Tahira wouldn't have gone by Maj. I just thought Maj was holding her all the way. Tahira didn't need to improve, didn't even need to match that form to win the Irish Guineas. She was better than the opposition in that race. And I'd agree with Frank, rattling fast ground, I'm not sure would suit Tahira, but I think Maj is a better filly. I think she should be favoured, and I think she'll win.
That's a very strong opinion for a horse who's a significantly bigger price. Fran?
Tahira, the faster ground around track, given her style of race, and she could encounter traffic problems. Maj more straightforward, if you like. She can get in the front end and try and dictate things. I will give a mention to Sounds of Heaven, trained by Jess Carrington. She was very good winning at York recently, and I think at her current odds at 12-1, I can see her outrunning her odds into the money perhaps, and if one of the top two falter, I can see her definitely in the shake-up.
Okay, Sounds of Heaven each way maybe for Fran. Jesse, obviously a strong record in the race with those Niarchos, but Moj definitely a pass for you. Yeah, that's fine.
Like the Sounds of Heaven each way, because you wouldn't be surprised the race cut up as well. Like,
yeah,
you know,
could be.
8 places.
8 places in the correction.
7 winners.
Can't lose. King Edward VII is the derby of Royal Ascot, and looking at it's going to be a very open race. You've got Circle of Fire, Castle Way, King of Steel. He might be going to the Irish Derby, might be going to France as well. Continuous for Aidan. Alder, who was tipped up by Roy Delargy, I think, on the podcast. He was very keen before he was pulled out of the Derby. And Augusta Rodin's price, but surely not going there. Fran, to you for the King Edward.
Yeah, I'd be quite keen in drum roll here. He's in it, isn't he? Yeah, at 12-1. I know he had to survive the steer, or get it in the steer's room behind Tatoots last time. The form of that race probably needs to see him step up, but I do think he's a work in progress, and I think stepping up to 1.5 miles will suit him very well. Camber Legend is the other horse I'd like in it. I think he got overly worked up at the start. York, stable yard to Prairie can often happen.
It's a long walk, isn't it?
I'd forgive him that. And I think he'll see a different horse in Ascot. So okay. Camber Legend, drum roll, both 10 and 12-1 for me.
2 selections. Billy, anything in this?
Yeah, I think there's, just looking at the entries, loads of the ones towards the top of the ratings won't run here. So I think Castleway and Circle of Fire finished first and second in the listed race the other day. The two of them will probably be near the top of the Timeform ratings. They'll have very obvious chances, the two of them. But one I like, and I'm going to go against Fran here with a different Aidan O'Brien horse. I've no idea if he's going to run in the race. I hope he does, and that's Bertinelli. He was second Alder and Mallow on his reappearance, and then he won at Newbury, won a handicap at Newbury, an unusual move from Aidan O'Brien to do that. He won it off 99, I think. I think he's a horse that's improving. He's a big unit. He's going to get better and better. I think 1.5 miles will suit him, and I think really fast ground is important to him. I think that's probably why they took him to Newbury. I think if he gets that, there's more to come from him, and I'd really love to see him in this race.
He was originally going to run in the Lingfield Derby trial, but when they switched it to the all-weather, he went to Newbury, I think was the call for.
Yeah, the London Gold Cup traditionally is one of the strongest handicaps.
Always a good horse, yeah, essentially. Bertinelli, interesting shout. Billy, Frank, anything in this?
Yeah, I don't know if he's intended runner, but up and under.
He was well back for the Irish Derby the other day, I think.
So maybe he'll end up in that. Yeah, but if he did end up here, he's a big price. Again, you just be keeping an eye, because I think most of the horses that ran at Epsom won't run here, I would imagine. Like he's been second to White Birch and to Spreewell this year, and obviously they were third and fourth in the Derby. I think Spreewell particularly unlucky not to finish a good deal closer, so I think that's solid form. I think 1.5 miles will suit him. If he does end up here, I'd give him a decent chance. But as I said, maybe he'd go to the Irish Derby.
Can run them both, but they are relatively close to each other. But it can be done. There are other races on the Friday, including the Albany, the Group 3 for the fillies, 2-year-old fillies, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Sandringham, and the Palace of Holyrood House handicaps. Anything in any of those races you wanted to mention?
Yeah, the Albany is interesting. Again, we're a bit in the dark as to what's going to run, but very interesting filly called Jabara, who overcame trouble to win with loads to spare at Newmarket. She's got a Timeform large P. She's going to be one that'll be, she's going to be a major player. I'm assuming this is the race she'll turn up in. Soprano, we mentioned earlier, has got a squeak. But a couple of interesting Irish ones. One that threw her name into the hat just yesterday, Pearls and Rubies of Aidan O'Brien's, 1 over 5 furlongs at Navan yesterday, got up in the final stride, looks a really big filly, and the Albany was mentioned for her. She'd be interesting. And Michael O'Callaghan's Navassa Island, who ran really well in a Group 3 first time up. She's an expensive purchase in the Breeze Ups. Very nearly collared Porta Fortuna at Naas first time up. She's entitled to improve from that run, and if she does, she'll certainly have a rating to go close here.
Lovely. Navassa Island, Pearls and Rubies in those Richard Henry silks.
I'd be Navassa Island to the Albany as well. Yeah, I thought it was a huge run on debut. Like, very unlucky not to win. She builds on that. She's a big player. And I'd mention one in the Sandringham. I assume this would be the aim for Capiz. I think John Gosling, John and Thady.
Thank you.
Trained.
Poor Thaddeus.
I think she was really well backed. Was it in the Fred Darling in Newbury? And things just didn't go right, and she went up to very strongly back that day, and then went up to Newcastle. Bit of a confidence booster, but I think she's rated 97. Pretty sure she's probably a group horse. In time anyway. I'd assume she'll be in the entries and she'll be very interesting in that Sandra.
Okay, copies potentially in Sandrian. Before I move on to day 5, you anything?
Nothing really at all, no.
Excellent, that's fine, Fran. Very good, very good. I didn't wrap up the selections for the King Edward. Up and under for Frank if he goes there. Bertinelli for Billy, and watch out for Drumroll and Camera Legend for Fran in the King Edward VII. On to the Saturday, which is day 5, and we kick off with the Hardwick Stakes, 1.5 miles for the older horses. Hookham likely to make the market, very impressive when beating Desert Crown. You've got Free Wind, Pile Driver, Deauville Legend, Westover as well. So this is it is a Group 2, but it's almost a Group 1 in nature.
Really strong Group 2 this, yeah, really strong. A lot depends on Hookham, whether he's going to run. Apparently they're not going to risk him on good to firm ground, so there's a distinct chance that they won't. But if he does, he's probably the one to beat. Looked as good as ever after his injury layoff when he came back to beat Desert Crown over an unsuitable 1.25 mile trip. On his reappearance, the step up to 1.5 miles will suit him. He's a Group 1 winner from last year, so he's going to take all the beating if he runs. Pile Driver may just need the run after a break. Rebels Romance, Breeders' Cup turf winner from last year. Disappointed in the Shima Classic, but it wouldn't be unusual for a Godolphin horse to bounce back. And Free Wind, as you say, really interesting runner. Completed a 4-timer in the Middleton. She's clearly not easy to train, but they've kept her in training for a reason, and she looks like a mare that's going to make her mark at this sort of level. But like I said, Hookham will be the one to beat if he runs.
Who trains Free Wind?
John and Thady Gosden.
Oh, very good. Nailed it. Absolutely nailed it.
I'm going to call him the Gosdens.
That's a good trick, actually, the Gosdens. Fran, your thoughts?
Yeah, look, it's a race that could cut up a bit, and a lot of horse come on the back of layoffs. Deauville Legend, very interesting, as is Pile Driver, but long time off the track. Hookham, ground concerns, as Billy said. Adiar, he'll probably run early in the week, and it's a race I think is vulnerable to cutting up a lot. And for me, Free Wind at 4-1 currently is a big odds. I think she'll be a lot shorter in the day. I wrote her down alive. Oh, she was a really good filly. It's no surprise that she's bred a really good filly, a mare now in Free Wind. What she's done to date is exceptional, I think, and back up to 1.5 miles. I love the way when Frankie committed her in York. He went early, steady pace, where that, but she just showed her class inside the final furlong. I'd say she's running on fumes, probably needing it inside the final furlong, but definitely more to come. And back up to 1.5 miles, she'll take beating.
Free Wind, a couple of votes, Frank?
I hate pointing out your mistakes, but Little Big Bear's my nap on Thursday, and the Mass Island would be my next best.
Did I forget to get the naps on Thursday?
You did, of course.
Okay, we'll get them after this. But thanks for pointing it out.
But
thanks for phrasing it as my mistakes.
I hate doing it.
You really do hate it, yeah.
Can't be the Cork fella.
Some buy, all right, he is, yeah.
Death by 1,000 cuts. I assume Pile Driver will run here. And as Fran says, there's a good chance this race really cuts up. Look, you're taking a chance off him, not running since the King George last year, but he's a King George winner. We know he's a proper Group 1 horse when he gets, decent ground. He just doesn't want soft, heavy. Do you know what I mean? I just think I'd take a chance at 8-1 that he turns up, because I think I know there's sort of like thunderstorms forecast for Ascot, but like if they miss them, I don't think Hookham will run. And therefore, and even then, like Pile Driver, I know he was behind Hookham. Was it in the Coronation? But yeah, I still think Pile Driver on Ascot, he likes it. He's obviously won the King Edward the 8th there as well.
7th.
Pardon?
Edward the 7th.
King Edward the 7th, sorry. What did I say?
8th.
Sorry.
Did you make a mistake there? Sorry. Sorry,
he was just one of my favourite kings. That was all it was, yeah.
This is King Edward VIII was better than the 7th, yeah, definitely. This is live, so I can't just go to producer Mark. Can we just cut back to the naps on the Thursday? So that was Thursday wrapped up. Let's get.
Well, to be fair, you've made very little mistakes considering it's live.
Oh, thanks, man. Let's go back to Thursday, just briefly. Decided that we're going to get some naps for Thursday. So go back in your notes. Yeah, sorry with this, lad. Sorry, my bad. I'll go to you, Billy. You've actually turned the page. Come on, what's your nap on Thursday? It's 3 Little Big Bears. Come on, we can do this quickly.
I think it was Friday, was it?
Friday naps, yes, Friday naps. If I'm not a mistake.
Maj was going to be my nap on
Maj,
Friday.
yeah, okay, interesting in the Coronation. Fran?
Not really overly strong on anything on Thursday, but for me, if it's back on Friday, excuse me.
It's my bad, it's my bad.
Confused now. You don't go back in time and see drum roll at his current odds. I think it's really interesting. I think the trip will really suit him.
in the King Edward or something. Right, Frank?
Little Big Bear.
Little Big
and
Bear.
a strong mention for Navas Island each way in the Orbit
Okay,
as well.
lovely. So that was Friday naps in the middle of Saturday. Let's go back to Saturday for what is now called the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes, formerly the Platinum Jubilee. This is the second big sprint for older horses. And again, the Australians and the internationals are here. Artorias, been here before and failed to win. Wellington from Hong Kong as well. You've got Highfield Princess if she runs in both. I'm not sure that's the plan. Rohan loves it here at the track, but generally in handicaps and Sacred and Kinross and all these. Frank, go to you.
Yeah, I thought Artorias was quite unlucky last year when he was third. Didn't get the clearest of runs. He'd have a big chance. Rohan, I know you're saying he's one handicap, so he's won the walk him off 112 and 109. Particularly if you get a big field and a strong pace to aim at, he'll be rattling home. He'd have to have a chance. Look, I can't claim to be an expert on Hong Kong sprinters, but Wellington, four-time Group 1 winner out there. You're looking at RPRs, pretty high. I'd probably take a chance on him. I think was it Little Bridge won a sprint for Hong Kong about 10 years ago, was it? Was that the horse? Can you remember?
It could have been Cape Good Hope.
Cape Good Hope is one I remember. It was Mick Cannan wrote that.
Yeah, no, I can't. There's definitely another one, I think. But I'd take a chance on Wellington. I don't think like Kinross wants it rattling fast. If it ended up a small bit easier, Kinross obviously come into the equation. But yeah, Artorias is solid, but I'd take a chance on Wellington.
Wellington, all right, the Hong Kong sprinter. Ryan Moore rode him to win the Hong Kong sprint, of course, last year.
I think he's booked.
I was going to say, I think he might be on
he's
again.
booked to ride again.
So that'd be interesting. Fran, your thoughts on the big sprint?
Look, Artorias' biggest problem for him is can be tardy to gates, and if he gets out slowly, he's on the back foot. But his 2 runs in Europe last year were very strong. He sets a very good standard. I believe he's been performing well at home in the mornings. My Australian man tell me anyway, he's the one that they're positive about, rather than the other couple of runners early in the week. You'd assume Highfield Princess won't go 6 furlongs again. Rohan, I think, needs more cut in the ground to be at his best, for all that he likes Ascot. Our Power was very good in the Curragh, and he seemed to step forward.
He's always good at the Curragh. He's always good at the Curragh.
It's like taking on little leaguers in sprints, in it. He's back in the big league. I thought Sacred was very good last time when winning at Lingfield, albeit in the all-weather big run race last year. He may well just be coming to hand down a 10-1 for all the like Artorias. I think Sacred could be value in his price currently.
Okay, Sacred for Fran. Billy?
Not a race I have a strong opinion on, Patrick. Assuming Highfield Princess won't run, Wellington's going to be top rated on Timeform ratings. Hasn't really been at his best in Hong Kong this year, but if he comes back to his best, he's got a great chance. But like I said, it's one I'll be sitting out. It's
a pass for Billy. So Wellington for Frank, and Fran keeping an eye on Sacred in the now Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes, formerly the Platinum Jubilee. The Wokingham is the big sprint handicap of the week over the 6 furlongs. I'm looking at 7-1 the field as we're recording live on Monday. Orazio is that particular favourite. Kanjar in the Shadwell colours could be an interesting market move for that. Probe as well, going well at the moment. We got Jumby, who seems to be maybe able to do it over 6 rather than just 7. We thought he was only a 7 furlong horse, didn't we, Frank? Or did we?
No, 7 is probably his best, but he's won good race over 6 as well. So I think they said they were going to have a crack at the Wokingham with him as well. So,
had you any thoughts on this one?
I did. You go back to last year. I just have to look at it because it's going to be hard to remember off the top of my head. The draw played a huge part in the race last year. And if you go through the first 10 home, they came from stalls 19, 29, 31, 28, 27, 15, 25, 22, 7 and 20. And 19 was Rohan coming. If you look at him, he's actually on the rail. He's been held up on the rail, so it was a massive advantage to be drawn high. So if you're drawn low to middle, you basically had no chance. So you're looking at the horses that were drawn 15 and 7 who hit the top 10, and they were First Folio and Fresh. First Folio's been a bit disappointing. He's one that's drawn me in a few times without really delivering, but I think fast ground, and if he's drawn in the right place here, he's likely to be a big price because he's been a bit disappointing this year. He was rated 99 in the race last year. He's off the same mark again. I could see him running well. And Fresh, of course, at Ascot, you'd have to give him a chance. He loves Ascot. He ran the race last year off 98. He's rated 101, but he's won at Ascot off higher and has been tried in Group Company as well. So the two of them would stand out as being potentially well handicapped or fairly handicapped based on last year's run if they get drawn in the right place this year. Like you can be hostage to the draw. As you saw with last year. But if they got drawn in the right place, they'd be on my shortlist anyway.
Lovely. Okay. Fresh, first folio and fresh for Frank, subject to the draw. Anything, Fran? You're staring at me intently. You have one.
I'll plead the fifth and wait for the draw.
Fair enough. If there was one you were hoping to get a good draw?
I thought, I can't even pronounce the trainer's name, but in York, Epsom last week, Apollo 1 ran really well. And
Peter Charalambous?
Charalambous, there you go. You and your French names and etc.
It's another one.
Oh,
yeah. And I just thought Apollo 1 ran really well in Epsom last week, and his horse that currently at 20-1, he could, with a good
draw.
High draw.
High draw.
But depending, like I said, but it definitely looked like, doing the draw analysis last night, if the ground's on the fast side, you probably want to be drawn high on the sprint track, definitely.
Fair enough. Billy, was there anything for you?
Yeah, a couple of... Orazio's the one on everybody's lips for this. He's a most progressive horse, course and distance winner, acts on quick ground, looks to have everything in his favour. He's going to be a pretty sharp price for a walk game, I'd imagine. But again, I consulted with my colleague David Johnson, who's Timeform's flat editor. He knows a lot more about these things than I do. And he was telling me that he's quite sweet on a horse called Strike Red of Richard Fahey's, a horse that likes to come from off the pace. He just got involved a bit too soon at Epsom the other day. He raced close to the pace for, unusually for him, and faded out a bit late on. But he tells me that this is the race that he's been lined up for. Won at York last year. He's rated 95. He might just sneak in. He'll be a big price. He could run well each way. So if he wins, obviously that's all of my own work. And
yeah,
you can blame David
I've actually
Johnson.
written it down as David Johnson's selection, Billy, so I hope you don't take offence. That's Strike Red in the Woking. Watch out for First Folio and Fresh for Frank, and Apollo 1 if he gets a good
Strike
throw.
Red wins, you have to tweet and tag David
I
Johnson.
will.
What a tip.
What a tip. Loads of other races on the Saturday. You got the Chesham, which is the listed race for the juveniles. The Jersey, Mustabshire could still go for that, which would be interesting. The Golden Gates Handicap and the Queen Alexandra. I think Stratham's, he going for 3 in a row in that for Willie Mullins?
Yeah.
So, Fran, you've got something ready for me. So what horse do you want to flag up?
Look, the Jersey, if Royal Scotsman pitches up and they go there, hope to go there, 7 furlongs. Now, you got to forgive the Irish Guineas run, but in an ideal world, Billy, 7 furlongs to Royal Scotsman, I think, is made from. And if he stripped anything like the best of his form, he'd win. Just the Guineas run, Irish Guineas run, is a little bit of a worry for me. The Chesham, everyone's seen the Dubai called to Charlie Appleby's, who was having a quiet time of things until last Friday, winning Haydock, Ancient Wisdom. He was very, very impressive. He's qualified for that race, I believe. And he'd look with a 2-week window, over 2-week window to get there. And the Queen Alexandra, I know Billy is one he likes, but I have one I like in it as well. Run for Oscar. If he was dropped £1, he would have got into the Ascot Stakes. He wasn't, and I'm sure he'll go to the Queen Alexandra. Really good win in the English Cesarewitch last year, 2 miles 6 for all at Stratham. He got a fine right to win last year, Stratham, off William Buick. I think third time lucky, mightn't have come up against a horse like Run for Oscar. And another potential improver, Billy.
Yes.
Go on, what's yours then?
A bit of a cliff horse for me, Patrick, but Dawn Rising. I was all over him for the Albert Bartlett at Cheltenham. Yeah, I was all over him for the Albert Bartlett, and yeah, the race just didn't work out for him for some reason. You couldn't blame lack of stamina because he was beating the circuit from home, so put a line through that. But he ran a cracker in the Saddlebeg on his first run back since. That was over 1 mile and 6. I'm hoping he'll stay 2-6. We don't know until he gets there, but I think he will stay, and I think he's a progressive horse. Look, Stratham, he's going for 3 in a row in the race, but Willie Mullins, ridden by Frankie, will be Frankie's last ride at Royal Ascot, owned by Tony Bloom. You could see him going off a pretty ridiculous price.
Does he have a bet? Tony Bloom?
So they say.
Only if he gets extra place.
Frank's shaking his head.
Oh, I'd say no. I think his biggest bet was probably giving a new lad at Brighton a contract.
That would be a fairly big bet. Right, let's wrap up. I didn't get did you anything there, Frank?
I would just, I don't know if she's going to be entered, but if Matilda Picot is in the Jersey, I'd be half interested. She ran up the centre of the track at Haydock, and as we know, that was a massive disadvantage on the day. I thought she won a huge race in the Guineas, and even when she was second to Never Ending Story in the Guineas trial at Leopardstown, I thought she ran a fine race. You could see her, look, it's not ideal to be front running over 7 furlongs in a mile on the straight track, but I could see her give it a good go if she did run there.
Kieran Cotter's Matilda Picot. So Ancient Wisdom in the Chesham. You've got Royal Scotsman, Matilda Picot in the Jersey. Run for Oscar and Dawn Rising. Ones to watch out for in the Queen Alexandra as well. That is it. Wrapped up Royal Ascot. What we need is, it doesn't say, it does say Saturday Naps, but I might get like a nap of the week instead. Sorry, producer Mark. I think that probably, if it comes on Saturday, that's great. But a nap of the week for me, I've thrown that ad-libbing this one. It's live TV, lads. You know, what are you going to do? So, Billy, you've closed your notes, so you know your nap of the week is. Go on then.
My nap of the week is Noche Magica each way in the Norfolk.
Lovely stuff, the Norfolk, Noche Magica. Intake of breath from Fran Hickey. What's your nap?
I'll go Barnwell Boy in the Windsor Castle, assuming he'll run.
Assuming he runs there.
Yeah. I did nap him earlier because I wasn't sure he'd definitely run, but he's a horse I really like.
Clearly,
and I want to
Barnwell
get
Boy.
him. Yeah, I want to get him on side.
In the Windsor Castle, Franberry?
If Run for Oscar runs in Queen Alexandra, he's a better week for me. I think.
You have to wait till the last race of the festival for your nap.
Kick off the weekend good. If he doesn't run Warm Heart in the Ribblesdale, I think a mile and a half would suit him very well. But Run for Oscar, go back to what he did last season in the Cesar, which I think he's been trained for this.
Okay.
He could have won twice in a week if he was dropped a pound, but we'll wait for the Saturday.
Hey, Charles Burns not going to manage to get dropped a pound. He's got previous in getting horses dropped a few
It's
pounds.
happened when I was riding for him.
Yeah, well, yeah. Put Fran on and he'll be dropped 5 pounds every time. You did ride a winner for Charles Burns at the festival. at Royal
I'll show you the
Ascot.
video later, do you?
Oh, thanks, yeah. Was that how many winners did you ridden? Have you ridden a Royal Ascot
Can't
winner?
remember, Pete.
Fair enough. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, watch out for the punters panel on the Paddy Bear Racing YouTube. We'll get more from Fran on that, as well as check out the Sporting Life YouTube channel as well. There's going to be loads of good stuff, including, as I said, the punters panel. Johnny Deneen going to be dropping in for that, and Ruby Walsh going to a few Irish yards on the Paddy Bear Racing YouTube channel. So definitely one to watch out for. We'll have you totally covered with the From the Horse's Mouth podcast, daily tipping shows for Royal Ascot. Ruby Walsh and Rory Delargy will be on those. And the Sporting Life app, remember, where you will get fast results, analysis, opinions, loads of winners, and led to believe also a free bet for Paddy Bear customers will land for day one of Royal Ascot. All the notes, producer Mark. Thank you very much. Right, lads, thank you very much. And look, have a great week, I think, is the main thing. Anyone heading? Anyone heading?
Unfortunately not.
No.
I'll be working.
I'll be in Wexford on Wednesday.
I'll text you. We'll get an nap for the Wednesday.
We're
Wexford.
having lunch on Wednesday.
Tuesday. Wexford on Wednesday.
Flatter jumps, Fran.
Jumps,
Oh,
yes.
well, lovely stuff. We'll look forward to the nap of Wexford on Wednesday on Royal Ascot Wednesday. Enjoy the week, folks. Remember, if you're having a bet, please do gamble responsibly. Loads of tools on responsiblegaming.paddypair.com. But best of luck at Royal Ascot.